So I decided to try my hand at something they call a cherry cheese coffee cake. And traditionally speaking, it's done in a ring, but as you can see from that lovely photo I started the video with, people have figured out how to turn it into a heart shape. So I wanted to give it a try. Now, I'm not a huge fan of cherry pie, so I decided to use apple pie filling instead. And so we'll see how it turns out. So I oiled my stone because my stone is pretty new. I got it in my kit, so it's not well seasoned yet, and I didn't want my crescent rolls to wind up sticking to my stone. But if as you use your stones, they become naturally more seasoned, and then you'll find that you don't have to grease them or anything else. But again, I didn't want to take a chance because this is a stone I got in my consultant kit. If anybody's interested in that, the consultant kit you get depending upon which one you decide to order, you get a number of products for a greatly reduced price. Even if you only wind up doing a couple of shows just to earn your kit price back, you've now earned your kit and you get a discount as well. So that aside, now I'm laying out my crescents and I'm trying to figure out how to turn it into a heart because of course the original recipe is for the ring. So I'm just laying them out and trying to form a heart as I go. And the recipe calls for 2 packages of crescent rolls, but you're supposed to save 4 of them to cut up into strips and lay across the top of the filling. That's the only direction you sort of get in the recipe to sort of figuring this out. So now I'm rolling them together to prevent there from being holes where the filling can leak out. And the roller that you see me using is a lot of fun for kids. When we did the mini pies with my nephews at Thanksgiving, they had a great time using that roller. Nikki turned it into a little car and everything. So now I'm just, like I said, I'm just sealing everything together to make one shape, and then I'll start with the filling itself. Another thing worth noting here while I'm finishing the shape is that the stone I'm using is glazed on the outside. You can see the white rim, but the inside they call it bare, which is another reason why I had to season it. We do have pieces that are glazed both inside and out, which makes it significantly easier because they're dishwasher safe and they don't need to be seasoned because they're glazed. So keep that in mind. There is no round platter yet in that collection. They're only rectangular, which is why I used the one you see there. So now I'm working on the cream cheese filling. I wound up pulling out my electric mixer because I didn't allow the cream cheese to soften enough. Now that's always an option and it works just fine, but it's not the best solution. Quite honestly, the product comes together much better if you do allow the cream cheese to soften, and then you can use your mix and scrape to mix it all together. But again, by default, I used the electric mixer and it was fine. So the filling, the cream cheese portion of the filling calls for a block of softened cream cheese, half a cup of powdered sugar, I believe it was a half a teaspoon of vanilla, and an egg. I'll definitely post the recipe, but you will see in the recipe, I told you at the top of the video, it's actually a cherry cheesecake coffee cake recipe. I replaced the cherry component with apple pie filling. It worked, in my opinion, it worked probably just as well. Might have wanted to cut the apples up a little bit, but then you lose the benefit of using the canned pie filling. You might as well make your own filling then at that point. Speaking of which, in another post around oatmeal, I posted about a berry compote that you can bake up in the oven. That would make an excellent filling actually for your ring. If you made extra of the berry compote, say you had a brunch and you had leftovers, you can make yourself a ring for the next day or something like that. You can even plan that as part of your brunch. Make a double batch of your berry compote and then use it to fill your ring right before your guests come. You could put your ring in the oven and then pull it out 20 minutes later and you're done and you've leveraged the berries. It's always good general practice to have some sort of flow between the food that you offer at a party. So having the berry compote in your coffee cake ring as well as a topping for your oatmeal just makes for general flow between your food. Oftentimes when I record videos of me making recipes and what have you, I'll speed up the clip so that you're not necessarily watching me do every last thing at the same real-time speed. This one I chose to leave alone so that you could see the level of effort involved. You see me now, I've finished using the batter bowl and the mix and scrape to put out the cream cheese filling, and now I'm moving on to the canned pie filling. Now I probably could have cut up the apples a little bit, might have come out a little nicer or something, but honestly it defeats the purpose of using a canned filling if you're going to then go ahead and start chopping up the apples. Seems silly. So I just went with what I had. Again, not a huge fan of cherry pie, which was what the original recipe and the picture was taken of. So I went with apple and just decorated with some strawberries to make it look a little nicer, put some color in it and what have you. So you could do as you want with this particular concept. And now you just top it with the remainder of the crescent rolls. You can pick up the tails for the crescent rolls that you already have on the pan and loop them over as well. Mine winds up being a very fat heart. The picture I had shown you was a much thinner heart. It's really up to you. You get the idea. It's heart-shaped. It's a coffee cake. It's appropriate for a brunch or a breakfast for that particular holiday, or anytime you want to show somebody some extra special love. But you can do the ring as well. And so you just work it out with the extra crescents. Remember, there were 4 reserved from the 2 cans of crescent rolls, and you just top off the heart shape with the crescents. Forgive my terrible singing voice. I didn't realize that I had sung in the middle there. This is the night of the Grammys that I actually did this video, so they had Sting going in the background. But again, all I'm doing is trying to top off the filling now with some crescents and build up the sides so that it doesn't spill out, because you don't want it leaking all over your baking stone. Only because then you lose the shape. It's not going to do anything to the stone, honestly. The stones, whether they're the glazed ones that you can put in the dishwasher or this particular one which you have to clean by hand, doesn't make a difference. They really do clean up very easily. But had I allowed the filling to just spill out all over the place, you lose the design. And in this particular case, it was kind of essential. I wanted the heart shape. If you were going for more of the circle, the pan is circular in shape, so you wouldn't have lost the shape per se. And I was just tearing it. Of course, had I been doing it for an actual party, I might have chosen to cut it with a knife. Once it bakes up, you really, honestly, you don't see it. You don't see the strips as far as whether they're neatly cut or just torn, because it puffs up. It's just, you're using crescent dough. So if you've ever just made the crescents, you know what I'm talking about. And so now I finished shaping it up, and now I'm going to put it in the oven and let it bake for 20 minutes. I have a convection oven, and I did it at 350 degrees for the full 20 minutes. Once it came out of the oven, I topped it with the glaze that I'm making here, which is a few tablespoons of milk, 2 to 3, and about half a cup of powdered sugar. But I had actually poured a little more than a half a cup of sugar in that silicone prep bowl that you see there. So that's why I went with the 3 tablespoons of milk. Those silicone prep bowls, it comes in a set of three different sizes. They're awesome. Again, another workhorse. I mean, I really truly do use my Pampered Chef products on an everyday basis. Because it's silicone, I can squeeze it and pour the glaze out onto my heart, as you see here. And that's all I'm doing. I'm just pouring it over the top. Now, I did it over the top of the coffee cake, and then I chose to decorate it with the strawberries. You could have waited with the glaze and decorated with the strawberries first, then put the glaze over the top. There's really no right or wrong way to do this stuff. That's the neat thing about these types of recipes. You do whatever you feel like doing. And then, you make it up as you go along a little bit. You take the idea of what somebody else did and you go with it. So then I'm decorating with some strawberries. Again, the picture was done with cherry cheesecake, so you had more red. I went with a lot more strawberries to reinforce the shape and bring in the red.